After Bob called me and told me he wanted to get back into paranormal investigating, my next question was when and where we're going to be doing this at first. He told me that himself and 3 other Wiccans who go out and do seances in haunted places wanted me to film their sessions. I'm no Wiccan, but I've always loved the paranormal. Even after what I dealt with at Sugarloaf, I still had an itch to scratch, so I figured I'd go. When he answered me, I got a terrible gut feeling, and I wished so much that I trusted my gut and told him I changed my mind. But I didn't. "Remember that lantern light out near Sugarloaf?" he asked me, as if there was any way I could ever forget it. "Yeah," I stammered. "Why do you ask?" I told my group the story, and they want to do the ritual there and see if we can contact the spirit and find out why it's there and what it wants, Bob replied. "I don't know, man," I said. "Come on, Josh. Trust me, you'll be safe, and I'm gonna pay you $250 just to sit there and film it," he retorted. At the time, I was about to become a father, and money was tight because diapers, formula, and the like had cost a small fortune. Not to mention, it was my first kid and my new wife's first kid, so she'd been going crazy spending money on not just necessities, but also buying top-of-the-line products. Because my wife was putting us in the house, I had to weigh out my fear of the area he wanted to go back to. It was so important to make the extra money, so against my better judgment, I accepted the offer. A week later, I was in the same beat-down celebrity Bob was driving 3 years before. This time, Bob was with 2 guys and 1 girl that were complete strangers to me. They were each dressed very gothic and had these pentagram necklaces or something of the sort. It was 11:50 when we got there, and the 4 of them sat in a tight circle, and I was behind them to the right about 5 feet from the barbed wire fence in front of the field. This was the same field that led to the hillside, and my back was towards the hillside and bushes, right at the fence line. I was filming my friend's circle as they all started chanting something. As I've been typing this entire post, I've been getting knots in my stomach knowing that I was coming to this part of the story. It haunts my dreams, and I even wake up to it to this day. I'm going to do my best to describe how the following events unfolded, though I know mere words can't do it justice. Believe me when I say up to this point in my life I was interested in the paranormal. It was a fun hobby. But after this night, I never looked at it the same, and it wasn't fun or interesting anymore. I show it respect and stay away as far as possible. As his group was chanting, Bob lit up this huge candle in the middle of them and opened up some sort of book. It's not like a scary antique spell book or anything. It looked like a newer hardcover. Anyways, he started reciting words from it, and then he looked at his phone and told the group to be quiet and then looked at the hill. I turned the camera, and at midnight on the dot, the lantern appeared. One member of Bob's group blurted out, "That's cool." I rolled my eyes, since the way these people were dressed and the way they carried themselves, the word cool didn't seem to fit in their vocab. Then Bob said to the group to join hands as they attempt to communicate with the spirit. I turned my back to the light and began to film the group as they began again chanting and Bob read from the book. Then they started asking questions in hopes the spirit would respond. About this time the wind picked up and Bob's candle went out. He told everyone to hold on and told me to cut the camera for a minute, and I obliged and stopped recording. I watched Bob try his lighter, then 2 lighters from the group, but none of them were working. I'm sitting down watching the group when I started hearing a rustling behind me. I jumped up, leaving the camera on the ground, and span around. Bob and his group were preoccupied with the candle and the lighter problem, and I was blinded by the brightest light I've ever seen. What I believe I saw was the lantern up close and personal, but as quick as it appeared, it had also been gone. It was nowhere to be seen, and it had blinded me and moved across the field and right behind me without me not realizing. Within the span of maybe 30 seconds, I looked around for the lantern and nothing. It was only 12:15 or so, and the light had always stayed until sunrise. I muttered, "Guys, Did you see that?" They all turned and asked what I was talking about, but before I could answer them, we were stopped dead in our tracks by distant laughter coming from nowhere and everywhere around us. This moment just seemed far off, and it wasn't ordinary laughter. It sounded like hundreds or even thousands of children that haunt me to this very moment. The best way I could describe this laughter is for you to imagine listening to a large group of kids singing "Row Your Boat." You know, how one kid will start and then seconds later another will join in. I'm not saying the laughter sounded like the song, but I'm saying they laughed in unison like kids do when they were singing it. One would start, and then seconds later another would chime in, and it was getting closer. There was sinister laughing, goofy laughing, giggling coming from all around us in all directions. I was shaking, and I couldn't move, but I was spinning, looking off in the distance, saying, "This can't be real." This sort of thing does not happen, and we didn't know what was going on. I screamed to Bob that we had to get out of there, leaving the book and the candle behind. We got in the car and drove away, asking if we'd really heard what had just happened. I told Bob I was sorry, but I left the camera behind, and he said he didn't care and isn't going back for it. Bob later told me his friend said she believed it was the children of Hecate, or something like that. I had no idea what Hecate was, but it sounded like more of a guess to me. They told me it again later, and after they said that, a loud snapping noise came from the front end of the car, and the celebrity stopped in its tracks and would no longer move forward. Bob called his friend on the phone, who lived about 20 minutes away from where we were, and they said they were on their way. I can't be certain, but my gut tells me I'm correct when the vehicle didn't stop as it came into view. It was two men in their 30s to 40s and an old beat-up pickup truck. I looked at Bob, and before I could speak, he said what I was already thinking. "The guys in the boat, they passed by." Bob called his friend back and told her to drive like hell and get here now. But she told us she made a wrong turn and it was going to be 15 more minutes before she could get there. He hung up the phone and watched in terror as the same truck passed by again, this time with only one of the boatmen in the truck. The driver stopped and he said,
"Looks like you fellers could use some help,"
and then speeds up and drove off again. We were definitely dealing with the same boat guys as before. We began to hear the laughter again in the distance, but this time it was all around us like before, and over the next few minutes, it started getting closer and closer. The laughter seemed to be coming from the woods on both sides of the roads we were stuck on, and the laughing seemed to be zeroing in on us as if hundreds or thousands of children were in reaching distance of us. With our last shred of hope fading away, the laughter of the children and the headlights of the two vehicles being driven by the boatmen, we were given a reprieve at this time. Coming from the other direction was another set of headlights. Bob's friend had pulled up, and he knew we weren't kidding about the laughing kids. She screamed at us to get in, and we did. For about 2 miles after that, we heard the laughter still off in the distance, and then 3 miles went, and it was gone. To this day, I don't know what happened, what the laughing children were, why it followed us, or if the boatmen were connected at all. Was the lantern connected to the laughing children, or did the group mistakenly call forth the laughing children? All I could say is if you use paranormal as a thrill-seeking hobby, just use caution and always have your vehicle checked out beforehand. I hope everyone who reads this sleeps well. But I know that after telling my story like that, for the next few nights, I won't be getting any sleep at all. Maybe what we saw was all connected, and maybe again, it wasn't. But we'll never know, and I don't think I have the passion to find out. It'll always be hard for me to tell that story. Even writing about it makes me want to not go back to those memories. But I know I have to face them one day. But if Bob ever asks me to go back again, you can imagine that I'm gonna trust my gut this time.